William Deere is the director of UNRWA's Washington office. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Thanks very much for joining us on Al Jazeera. 6 members of UNRWA have been killed in the strike. It's the highest death toll in one single incident of UN staff. How does UNRWA continue to operate when it appears its own staff are not safe?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you. And yet again, we see a conflict where there seems to be absolutely no bottom to it. 6 colleagues lost today. That brings the death toll just among UNRWA staff in this conflict to 220, which is the highest ever in United Nations history. Our staff is, while you noted that no place is safe in Gaza, our staff are on the front lines, and they're not going to back down. They're not going to stop doing their job. But you are absolutely correct that nowhere in Gaza is safe right now.
The UN says it shared information with Israel that the school was being used as a shelter, more than 12,000 people there. Why then does Israel still target the location? Is that intelligence being used against the UN and against people seeking shelter there?
Well, this is certainly and sadly not a unique situation. A total of 190 of UNRWA's installations have been damaged. That includes 128 of our school sheltering internally displaced people. Many of them hit more than once. You are correct. The United Nations provides the Israelis with GPS data on where every location, all of our locations. And in fact, to dispel another rumor, the UN just doesn't get up in the morning and decide to drive somewhere in Gaza. Every one of those movements is coordinated with the Israeli Defense Force. And as you saw on Monday, a UN convoy that was going to vaccinate children in the north of Gaza against polio was stopped for 8 hours and included very significant damage from bulldozers to our convoy.
You're also appealing for schools not to be used as military targets, yet it still happens. You've also mentioned more than 200 staff being killed throughout this period, the war on Gaza. This, once again, is a flagrant disregard of international law, but it seems very little can be done to stop it.
At the moment, I would have to agree with you. In fact, the Commissioner General, Philippe Lazzarini, just noted that, frankly, the longer the seeming impunity prevails over these incidents at displaced shelters, the more international humanitarian law and the more the Geneva Conventions will become irrelevant. And this is not going to be a situation that is just going to be restricted to Gaza. The world is watching to see what they can get away with.
To explain why the convention, for example, becomes irrelevant, to explain why law is not being adhered to, this is the 5th time the school has been targeted. And we've heard many a time, and you've said it again tonight, there is no safe space or place for people in Gaza. What are people there continuing to face?
Well, again, 128 of our schools have been hit at least once, most of them more than once. That's 70% of the schools that we in the UNRWA school system in Gaza. International humanitarian law is quite clear that you have to protect these people, but it is being completely ignored in this instance. And again, the fear is not just about what's going on in Gaza, but that bad actors throughout the world are watching and waiting to see the reaction to this.
Right, William Deere, the director of UNRWA's Washington office, thank you very much for joining us this evening and explaining to us the situation in Gaza after the news that 6 of your colleagues were killed in that strike.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.